As the world quiets and the stars begin to shine above, let us take off on a journey through time, to a land where mountains touch the heavens and ancient secrets whisper through the winds. Tonight, we unravel the tale of the Inca civilization, a people whose ingenuity and spirit carved an empire across the rugged spine of the Andes. This is not merely a history lesson, but a story of human triumph, resilience, and mystery, told in a way that invites you to drift into dreams while exploring the past. Picture yourself standing on a mist-shrouded peak, the air cool and crisp, as the echoes of a lost world call out to you. From their sacred cities to their intricate stonework, the Inca built a legacy that endures, even as their voices have faded into the ages. This video is crafted for those who seek to learn while they rest, to let the gentle cadence of history lull them into sleep. Whether you're nestled in bed or simply seeking a moment of calm, let this tale of the Inca guide you into a world of wonder. I'd love to know, where are you watching this from? What time is it there? Drop a comment below to share your corner of the world, and if you enjoy this journey, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a story. Your support keeps these tales alive, and I'm so grateful to have you here. Hello, my name is Sherry, and welcome to my channel. So let's begin. Section 1. The dawn of the Inca. Imagine a world before time was counted as we know it, where the Andes Mountains stood as silent sentinels, their peaks piercing the heavens, cloaked in mist and mystery. The air is thin here, sharp with the scent of earth and stone, and the waters of a sacred lake glimmer under the first light of dawn. This is where our story begins, not with kings or conquests, but with a legend whispered through generations, a tale of divine origins that birthed one of the greatest civilizations the world has ever known. Close your eyes, if you will, and let the gentle rustle of the Andean winds carry you back to the dawn of the Inca. Long before the empire's golden age, before the stone cities and sprawling roads, there was a prophecy. The people of the Andes spoke of a time when the gods would send their chosen to unite the scattered tribes and forge a realm blessed by the heavens. That time came with Manco Capac and Mama Oclo, figures shrouded in myth yet revered as the founders of the Inca. As the story goes, they emerged from the sacred waters of Lake Titicaca, sent by Inti, the sun god himself. Manco Capac, with his golden staff, and Mama Oclo, radiant with wisdom, were tasked with a divine mission, to find the place where the earth and heavens met, where the staff would sink into the ground, marking the heart of a new civilization. Their journey was no simple wander. The Andes are a land of extremes, jagged peaks that scrape the sky, valleys carved by ancient rivers, and winds that howl with the weight of time. Manco Capac and Mama Oclo traveled through this rugged world, their steps guided by faith and the will of Inti. They carried with them not just the golden staff, but the promise of order, of a society that would rise above the chaos of warring tribes. The people they met, small communities eking out a living from the stubborn soil, watched them with wary eyes. Some saw them as strangers, others as harbingers of destiny. But Manco and Mama Oclo pressed on, their hearts set on the land that would become the navel of the world. At last, they reached a valley cradled by mountains, where the air was soft and the earth fertile. Here, in the place we now call Cusco, Manco Capac thrust his golden staff into the ground, and it sank deep, as if embraced by the earth itself. This was the sign they had sought. Here, they declared, would rise the city of the Inca, a sacred center where the divine and mortal would intertwine. Cusco, meaning navel in the Quechua tongue, was more than a city, it was a promise, a covenant between the gods and their people. The founding of Cusco marked the beginning of the Inca's story, a moment when myth and reality wove together, setting the stage for an empire that would one day stretch across the Andes. But who were these people, these early Inca, before they were an empire? They were not yet the lords of stone and sky we imagine. In those early days, they were a small tribe, one among many in the Andes, scratching out a living in a land that demanded resilience. Their homes were modest, built of stone and thatch, huddled against the cold of the high altitudes. They farmed maize and potatoes, crops that clung to life in the thin soil, and they worshipped the forces that shaped their world: the sun, the mountains, the rivers. Life was hard, but it was also rich with meaning. Every stone, every peak held a story, a spirit. The Inca called these sacred places huacas, and they were the threads that tied their world together, Erica. Manco Capac, though a figure of legend, was also a leader of practical genius. He taught the people the arts of agriculture and weaving, skills that would become the backbone of Inca society. Mama Aklo, his equal in wisdom, shared knowledge of textiles and healing, binding the community with her care. Together, they laid the foundations of a culture that valued harmony between people, between the land and the divine. The early Inca learned to terrace the steep slopes, to channel water from mountain streams, to build with stones that fit so tightly no mortar was needed. These were not the grand works of later centuries, but they were the seeds of greatness, planted in the fertile soil of Cusco's valley. Yet the path was not easy. The Andes were a fractured land, home to rival tribes who guarded their territories fiercely. The early Inca faced resistance, their small numbers tested by conflict and scarcity. But Manco Capac's vision held firm. He was not just a warrior but a unifier, drawing neighboring communities into his fold with promises of shared prosperity. Slowly the Inca grew, their influence spreading like the roots of a great tree. Cusco became a beacon, its name whispered with reverence, a place where the gods had walked among men. The people began to see themselves as something more, a nation chosen by the sun, destined to rise. As the stars wheeled above the Andes, the Incas' dreams grew bolder. The city of Cusco expanded, its stone walls rising higher, its plazas bustling with life. The descendants of Manco Capac inherited his ambition, their eyes turning to the horizons beyond the valley. The tribes they had united were now their kin, bound by shared labor and faith. But the mountains were vast, and greater challenges awaited. Could this fledgling people, born of myth and determination, conquer the Andes themselves? The answer lies in the shadows of the peaks, where the next chapter of their story waits to unfold. Section 2. The land that shaped them. Picture a world sculpted by the hands of giants, where mountains rise like the spine of the earth, their peaks dusted with snow, their valleys cloaked in shadow. The Andes, a vast and untamed range stretching along the western edge of South America, were more than a backdrop for the Inca. They were the crucible in which their civilization was forged. As you settle into the quiet of this moment, let the cool breath of the highlands carry you to a land where every stone, every stream, holds a story. The Inca did not merely live in the Andes. They became one with it, their lives shaped by its beauty and its unrelenting demands. The Andes are a realm of extremes. Imagine standing at the edge of a cliff, the wind tugging at your clothes, as you gaze across a landscape that defies comprehension. Peaks soar to heights of over 20,000 feet, where the air is so thin it feels like a whisper in your lungs. Below, deep valleys carve through the earth, their slopes steep and unyielding, cradling rivers that roar with the meltwater of ancient glaciers. The climate shifts as swiftly as a dream. Sun-scorched days give way to nights so cold they seem to freeze time itself. Rain falls in torrents or not at all, and the soil, though rich in places, clings stubbornly to the mountainsides, demanding ingenuity from those who would tame it. For the Inca, this land was both a challenge and a teacher. They called it Tawantinsuyu, the land of the four quarters, a name that spoke to their vision of a world unified under their rule. But long before the empire, the Andes shaped their ancestors, teaching them resilience, reverence, and resourcefulness. The early Inca learned to read the land's moods, the way clouds gathered over a peak signaling rain, or how the stars shifted, marking the time to plant. They understood that survival meant harmony, not conquest. To live in the Andes was to listen to the earth, to honor its rhythms, and to build with its gifts. The mountains were sacred to the Inca, each one a huaca, a place imbued with spiritual power. Apis, the mountain gods, watched over the people, their snow-capped summits seen as protectors and judges. The Inca offered coca leaves and chicha, a fermented maize drink, to these spirits, seeking their blessing for crops, journeys, and battles. Rivers, too, were divine, their waters carrying life to the valleys below. The Urubamba River, winding through what we now call the Sacred Valley, was a lifeline, its banks lush with maize, quinoa, and potatoes. These crops, hardy enough to thrive in the high altitudes, were the Incas' sustenance, their cultivation and art perfected over generations. But the Andes demanded more than reverence. They required innovation. The steep slopes were no place for careless farming. The Inca carved terraces into the mountainsides, great stone steps that climbed like stairways to the sky. These terraces, built with precision, held the soil in place, capturing water from streams and rain to nurture their crops. Imagine the labor, men and women hauling stones, shaping them with tools of bronze and wood, their hands calloused but their spirits unyielding. These terraces were not just fields. They were acts of defiance against a land that seemed to resist taming. They transformed barren slopes into gardens, feeding a growing people and laying the foundation for an empire. The Andes also shaped the Incas' architecture. The stone they quarried from these mountains was not merely material but a partner in their craft. Unlike the builders of other ancient civilizations, the Inca used no mortar. Their stones, cut with astonishing precision, fit together so tightly that not even a blade of grass could slip between them. Picture a wall in Cusco, its massive blocks curved and angled, yet seamless, as if the mountain itself had shaped them. This was no accident but a philosophy. The Inca built to endure, to withstand the earthquakes that rumbled through the Andes, to mirror the permanence of the peaks. The climate, too, left its mark. The highlands' cold nights and dry seasons forced the Inca to innovate. They perfected the art of freeze-drying, leaving potatoes and meat exposed to the frigid air, then drying them under the sun. This preserved food for years, sustaining communities through lean times and fueling armies on the march. Their clothing, woven from alpaca and llama wool, was both practical and beautiful, dyed in vibrant hues that reflected the colors of the Andes: ochre from the earth, blue from the sky, red from the flowers that bloomed in hidden valleys. Every thread told a story of adaptation, of a people who turned hardship into art. Yet the Andes were not just a physical challenge, they were a spiritual one. The Inca saw their world as alive, every element connected in a cosmic balance. The sun, Inti, was their father, its warmth a daily gift. The moon, Mama Quilla, guided their calendars, her phases marking festivals and harvests. Even the stars held meaning, their patterns studied by priests who sought to understand the will of the gods. This worldview shaped their society, binding them to the land in ways that went beyond survival. To be Inca was to belong to the Andes, to carry its weight and its wonder in your bones. As the Inca grew, so did their mastery of this land. Cusco, their sacred center, became a hub of activity, its streets alive with the chatter of Quechua, the language that would one day echo across an empire. The people who walked those streets were not just farmers or builders, but visionaries, dreaming of a world where the Andes' challenges were met with unity and strength. But dreams alone could not build an empire. The Inca would need leaders, warriors, and a vision bold enough to bind a fractured land. What would it take for this small tribe to rise above the mountains and claim the Andes as their own? The answer lies in the steps of those who followed Manco Capac, their ambition as vast as the peaks themselves. Section 3. The birth of an empire. As the sun rises over the valley of Cusco, its golden light spills across the stone terraces, catching the dew on fields of maize and quinoa. The city is alive with the hum of a people finding their place in the world, their homes nestled against the embrace of the Andes. This is no longer just a village born of myth. It is a burgeoning center of ambition, where the descendants of Manco Capac stand poised to weave their destiny into the fabric of the mountains. The Inca, once a modest tribe among many, are ready to reach beyond their valley, their hearts stirred by a vision of unity and greatness. Tonight, as you drift toward sleep, let the story of their rise carry you to a time when a small people dared to dream of empire. The Andes in those early days were a mosaic of tribes, each fiercely independent, their loyalties bound to their own valleys and peaks. Some were farmers, others warriors, all shaped by the same unyielding land, but divided by custom and conflict. To forge an empire in such a place was no small feat. It required not just strength but wisdom, not just conquest but connection. The Incas' journey from tribe to empire began with leaders who saw beyond the horizon, men whose names would echo through the ages. Among them was Sinchai Roca, the son of Manco Capac, whose reign marked the first steps toward something greater than survival. Sinchai Roca was no mere warrior king. He was a unifier, a man who understood that the Andes could not be tamed by force alone. Picture him standing in Cusco's central plaza, his cloak woven with the vibrant colors of the highlands, addressing a crowd of wary allies and curious strangers. His voice, steady and warm, carried the promise of a shared future. Under his leadership, the Inca began to draw neighboring tribes into their fold, not through bloodshed but through marriage, trade, and mutual benefit. A rival chieftain's daughter became an Inca bride. A disputed field was shared for the good of all. These alliances, fragile at first, were the threads that began to stitch the Andes together. The Inca's early expansion was cautious, like a river finding its course through stone. They did not yet have the vast armies or grand cities of later years, but they had something equally powerful: organization. Sinchai Roca and his successors developed systems that turned Cusco into a hub of order. They divided their growing territory into manageable units, each overseen by trusted leaders who reported to the Sapa Inca, the supreme ruler. These leaders, often bound by blood or loyalty, ensured that every village contributed to the whole, whether through crops, labor, or warriors. This was the seed of Tawantinsuyu, the land of the four quarters, a vision of a unified Andes where no tribe stood alone. The Incas' strength lay in their ability to adapt the lessons of the land to their growing ambitions. Just as they had terraced the mountains to feed their people, they now terraced their society, creating a hierarchy that was both rigid and flexible. At its heart was the Ailu, the communal unit that bound families together in shared labor. Imagine a village working as one, men shaping stones for a new temple, women weaving cloth for the community, children tending llamas under the watchful eyes of elders. The Ailu was more than a system. It was a way of life, ensuring that no one went hungry, no task went undone. This sense of collective purpose gave the Inca an edge over their rivals, whose loyalties often fractured under pressure. But expansion brought challenges. The Andes were not a land that yielded easily. Rival tribes, fiercely protective of their autonomy, resisted the Incas' overtures. Small skirmishes flared along the edges of Cusco's influence, testing the young nation's resolve. Sinchai Roca, though a diplomat, was not afraid to wield force when needed. His warriors, armed with slings, clubs, and bronze-tipped spears, were disciplined and fierce, their training honed by the rugged terrain. Victories were celebrated not with conquest, but with integration. The defeated were welcomed into the Inca fold, their skills and knowledge adding to the collective strength. This was the Inca way: to absorb, to adapt, to grow. The early Inca also turned to their gods for guidance. Inti, the sun god, was their patron, his warmth a symbol of their divine mandate. Priests in Cusco's temples offered sacrifices, coca leaves, fine cloth, even the blood of llamas, to ensure the god's favor. These rituals were not mere ceremony. They were a reminder of the Incas' pact with the divine, a belief that their rise was written in the stars. The people looked to the heavens, to the Milky Way they called Mayu, the celestial river, for signs of what was to come. Every victory, every new alliance, was seen as a step toward fulfilling their destiny as the chosen of Inti. As Cusco grew, so did its reputation. The city became a magnet for traders, artisans, and dreamers, its streets bustling with the clatter of looms and the scent of roasting maize. The Incas' early leaders built not just walls, but bridges, literal and figurative, connecting distant valleys through shared purpose. They laid the foundations for what would become the greatest engineering feats of the Americas: roads that stretched across mountains, cities that defied the earth's tremors. But these marvels were still to come. For now, the Inca were a people on the cusp, their ambitions tempered by the challenges of a fractured land. The Andes were vast, and the tribes beyond Cusco's reach were many. Some whispered of a day when the Inca would rule from the mountains to the sea, but such dreams seemed distant. Could a people born in a single valley truly unite a land so divided? The answer lay in the hands of those who followed Sinchai Roca, leaders whose vision would push the Inca beyond their cradle and into the annals of history. As the stars gleam above the Andes, the next chapter of their story beckons, filled with the promise of greatness and the shadow of trials yet to come. Section 4. The genius of Inca engineering. As twilight settles over the Andes, the mountains stand like silent guardians, their rugged faces etched with the stories of a people who dared to shape them. The Inca, now growing in strength and ambition, turned their gaze to the very stone beneath their feet, seeing not just rock but possibility. Their cities, temples, and roads were not mere constructions, but acts of communion with the earth, built to withstand time and the tremors of the Andes. Tonight, as the world quiets and you drift toward dreams, let us walk among these marvels, where every stone whispers of ingenuity and devotion. This is the story of how the Inca became masters of their landscape, crafting wonders that still defy our understanding. To build in the Andes was to dance with a land that could be both generous and merciless. Earthquakes rumbled through the mountains, shaking loose the works of lesser hands. Steep slopes and thin air challenged every laborer, while the lack of iron tools or the wheel demanded creativity born of necessity. Yet the Inca saw these obstacles not as barriers, but as invitations. Their engineers, guided by a deep understanding of the land, created structures that seemed to grow from the mountains themselves. Picture a terrace clinging to a cliff, its stones fitted so perfectly they seemed to breathe as one with the earth. This was the Inca's genius, a harmony of human will and natural power. Consider Machu Picchu, the hidden city perched high above the Urubamba River. Imagine standing on its terraces, the mist curling around you, the peaks of the Andes framing a view that feels like the edge of the world. Built in the 15th century, likely under the reign of Pachacuti, Machu Picchu is a testament to Inca engineering. Its stones, some weighing tons, were quarried from the mountainside, shaped with tools of bronze and harder stone, and placed with precision that baffles modern architects. No mortar binds these walls. Instead, the stones are cut to interlock like pieces of a cosmic puzzle, their edges so tight that a knife's blade cannot slip between them. This technique, called ashlar masonry, allowed Machu Picchu to withstand centuries of earthquakes, its walls as steadfast as the mountains themselves. But Machu Picchu was more than a feat of construction, it was a masterpiece of planning. The city was divided into sacred and secular zones, with temples, plazas, and homes arranged to honor both the gods and the people. Water flowed through stone channels, fed by springs high in the mountains, ensuring a steady supply even in the dry season. Terraces cascaded down the slopes, their soil enriched to grow maize and potatoes, feeding a population that lived in this remote sanctuary. The Inca understood the land's rhythms, aligning their buildings with the solstices, so the sun's rays would pierce specific stones on sacred days. To walk through Machu Picchu is to feel the pulse of a civilization that saw no divide between the earthly and the divine. Beyond Machu Picchu, the fortress of Sacsayhuaman looms above Cusco, its massive walls a monument to Inca ambition. Imagine stones the size of small houses, some weighing over 100 tons, hauled across valleys and up hillsides by sheer human effort. The Inca used ramps, rollers, and ropes woven from llama hide, their teams chanting and working in unison, their labor a sacred act. Sacsayhuaman's walls, with their zigzag design, were not just defensive but symbolic, evoking the teeth of a puma, the animal that embodied Cusco's spirit. Each stone was shaped to fit its neighbor, their curves and angles creating a structure that seemed to grow from the earth. Even today, as you trace your fingers along these walls, you feel the weight of a people who built for eternity. The Incas' engineering extended beyond their cities. Their irrigation systems transformed the Andes' harsh terrain into fertile fields. Picture aqueducts carved into cliffs, their channels guiding water from distant springs to terraces miles away. These systems were so precise that they accounted for the land's slope, ensuring water flowed evenly to every field. In the Sacred Valley, canals fed sprawling agricultural estates, their waters sparkling under the Andean sun. The Inca also built storage houses, called calcas, where freeze-dried crops were kept cool and dry, safe from pests and time. These granaries, strategically placed across the empire, could sustain entire regions through drought or war, a testament to the Incas' foresight. Their bridges, too, were marvels. The Andes rivers, swollen by rain or snowmelt, could be deadly barriers. The Inca wove suspension bridges from iku grass, strong enough to carry dozens of people at once, swaying high above raging waters. Imagine crossing such a bridge, the ropes creaking underfoot, the river roaring below, yet feeling the strength of Inca craftsmanship holding you aloft. These bridges, maintained and rebuilt yearly, were lifelines, connecting communities and allowing trade to flourish. They were a reminder that the Incas' genius lay not just in stone, but in the delicate balance of human skill and natural materials. This engineering prowess was rooted in a worldview that saw the land as sacred. Every project began with offerings to the Apis, the mountain spirits, and to Pachamama, the Earth Mother. Priests blessed the stones, and workers poured their devotion into every cut and placement. The Inca did not conquer nature. They partnered with it, their creations blending so seamlessly with the landscape that they seem part of its soul. Yet this mastery came at a cost. Countless hours of labor, lives spent hauling stone under the relentless sun, and a society that demanded absolute commitment to the collective good. As the Incas' cities rose and their fields bloomed, their empire began to take shape, a network of stone and spirit stretching across the Andes. But what was it like to live in these places, to walk the streets of Cusco or pray in the temples of Machu Picchu? The heart of Inca life pulsed not in their stones, but in their people, in the valleys where their culture took root. What secrets did these sacred places hold, and how did they shape the soul of an empire? The answer lies in the gentle embrace of the sacred valley, where the Incas' story continues to unfold. Section 5. The Sacred Valley of the Inca as the moon casts its silver glow over the Andes. The Sacred Valley lies cradled between towering peaks, its rivers murmuring secrets of a time when the Inca walked these lands. The air is cool, fragrant with the scent of eucalyptus and wildflowers, and the stars above seem to whisper tales of a people who saw divinity in every ripple of water, every blade of grass. This valley, known today as the Vilcanota or Urubamba Valley, was the beating heart of the Inca world, a place where fields flourished, temples rose, and communities gathered in reverence. Tonight, as you sink deeper into the calm of this story, let us wander through this sacred land, where the Inca's spirit found its truest expression. The Sacred Valley stretches like a ribbon through the Andes, its fertile plains nestled between mountains that the Inca called Apis, their guardian spirits. Imagine standing on a terrace overlooking the Urubamba River, its waters glinting in the dawn, winding through fields of golden maize and vibrant quinoa. This was no ordinary valley, but a sanctuary, chosen for its beauty and bounty, where the Inca could live in harmony with the land and the gods. Here, the earth was generous, its soil enriched by centuries of river silt, its climate softened by the shelter of the peaks. To the Inca, this was a gift from Pachamama, the Earth Mother, a place to nurture both body and soul. Life in the Sacred Valley was a tapestry of labor and celebration. Picture a morning when the mist still clings to the hills, and families from the Ailu, the communal kinship groups, gather to tend the fields. Men and women work side by side, their hands guiding wooden plows drawn by llamas, their laughter mingling with the songs they sing to honor the harvest. Children scamper along the terraces, carrying baskets of freshly picked potatoes or coca leaves, their voices bright against the steady rhythm of labor. These terraces, carved into the slopes with meticulous care, are marvels of engineering, their stone walls holding the earth in a loving embrace, channeling water from mountain springs to every corner of the fields. The valley was more than a breadbasket, it was a spiritual center. Scattered across its length were huacas, sacred sites where the Inca communed with their gods. A boulder carved with intricate patterns, a spring that bubbled from the earth, a peak that caught the first light of the sun, all were alive with meaning. At Pisac, one of the valley's key settlements, a temple complex rose above the terraces, its stones aligned to capture the solstice sun, a testament to the Inca's astronomical wisdom. Imagine priests in flowing robes, their faces painted with reverence, offering coca and chicha to Inti, the sun god, as the first rays pierce the dawn. These rituals bound the community to the cosmos, reminding them that their lives were part of a greater cycle. The sacred valley was also a hub of connection. Its towns, like Ollantaytambo and Chinchero, were more than villages. They were crossroads where traders, artisans, and pilgrims met. Picture the narrow streets of Ollantaytambo, their stone walls still standing today, alive with the chatter of Quechua and the clatter of looms. Women wove textiles dyed with the colors of the valley, crimson from cochineal, indigo from plants, gold from the sun itself. These cloths were not just clothing, but currency, gifts, and offerings, each pattern telling a story of family or faith. Markets bustled with goods: potatoes and maize from the terraces, salt from the mines of Maras, coca leaves from the warmer slopes. The valley was a microcosm of the Inca world, where every exchange strengthened the bonds of Tawantinsuyu. Yet, life here was not without its demands. The valley's bounty required constant care. Irrigation channels, fed by the Urubamba and its tributaries, had to be maintained, their stone linings cleared of silt and debris. The Inca built aqueducts that snaked across cliffs, their engineering so precise that water flowed evenly to distant fields. These systems were a collective effort, with entire communities gathering to repair or expand them, their work accompanied by songs and shared meals. This spirit of Aini, reciprocal labor, was the valley's heartbeat, ensuring that no one worked alone, that every harvest was a victory for all. The sacred valley also held the Inca's elite. Noble families, loyal to the Sapa Inca, built estates here, their homes adorned with fine stonework and vibrant textiles. These were not just residences, but centers of power, where decisions about war, trade, and worship were made. Imagine a noblewoman standing on her balcony, gazing across the valley as messengers arrive with news from Cusco. Her children, destined for roles in the empire's hierarchy, learn the arts of leadership and devotion, their lives intertwined with the valley's rhythms. These estates were symbols of the Incas' growing might, proof that their vision of unity was taking root. But the valley was not isolated. It was linked to the wider empire by roads that wound through the mountains, their stone paths and swaying bridges carrying the lifeblood of Tawantinsuyu. Runners, called chasquis, darted along these routes, carrying messages knotted in quipus or goods for trade. The valley's abundance fed not just its people but the empire's ambitions, its harvests stored in calcas to support armies or weather lean years. This was a place where the Incas' dreams of greatness were grounded in the earth, where their spiritual and practical worlds met. As the valley thrived, so did the Incas' sense of destiny. The sacred valley was their sanctuary, a place where they could perfect the arts of agriculture, architecture, and worship that would define their empire. But to rule the Andes, they needed more than fertile fields. They needed a leader whose authority was unquestioned, a figure who embodied the divine. Who was this Sapa Inca, this god-king who held the fate of Tawantinsuyu in his hands? As the stars burn brighter above the valley, the story of his power calls us forward, promising revelations of a ruler unlike any other. Section 6. The Sapa Inca, god-king of the Andes as the sun dips below the Andean peaks, casting long shadows across the sacred valley, the heart of Cusco stirs with reverence. In the city's grandest palace, a figure moves through halls of polished stone, his presence commanding silence and awe. This is the Sapa Inca, the only Inca, a ruler whose authority flows not just from power but from divinity itself. To his people, he is more than a king. He is the son of Inti, the sun god, a living bridge between the mortal world and the heavens. Tonight, as you settle into the gentle rhythm of this tale, let us step into the shadow of this god-king, whose life and rule shaped the soul of Tawantinsuyu. The Sapa Inca was no ordinary leader. Imagine him adorned in a tunic woven with gold and vicuña wool, so fine it shimmered like sunlight on water. His headdress, crowned with feathers from distant jungles, bore the crimson fringe of the mascapecha, the symbol of his divine right. When he walked through Cusco's streets, carried on a golden litter borne by nobles, the people lowered their eyes, not out of fear but out of reverence. To look upon the Sapa Inca was to gaze upon the divine, a privilege reserved for the few. His words were law, his will the heartbeat of the empire, guiding everything from harvests to conquests. Yet this divinity came with a weight few could bear. The Sapa Inca was believed to be descended directly from Manco Capac, the mythical founder, his bloodline a sacred thread tying the Inca to their origins. This belief gave him absolute authority, but it also bound him to a life of ritual and responsibility. Picture him rising before dawn in the Coricancha, Cusco's Temple of the Sun, its walls plated with gold that glowed like fire. Here he offered prayers to Inti, pouring chicha from a golden vessel, his voice steady as he sought blessings for his people. Every act, from eating to ruling, was steeped in ceremony, for the Sapa Inca's life was not his own. It belonged to the empire and the gods. His role extended beyond spirituality. The Sapa Inca was the empire's architect, its strategist, its judge. In the great hall of his palace, surrounded by advisors and nobles, he made decisions that shaped Tawantinsuyu. Imagine a council meeting, the air thick with the scent of burning herbs, as messengers deliver quipus, knotted cords recording tributes, harvests, or troop movements. The Sapa Inca, seated on a low throne of carved wood, listens intently, his decisions final. He might order the construction of a new road to bind a distant province or send warriors to quell a rebellion. His word could mean prosperity or punishment, life or death, for entire communities. The Sapa Inca's court was a world of splendor and precision. His palace, the Acapada in Cusco, was a marvel of stone and gold, its rooms filled with treasures from across the empire, emerald feathers from the Amazon, shells from the Pacific, textiles woven with stories of conquest. His meals were served on plates of gold and silver, prepared by chosen women, the Akla, who lived in devotion to the empire. Yet, even this luxury was a reflection of his divine role. Every object, every ritual, reinforced his status as Inti's earthly embodiment, a ruler whose very existence ensured the cosmos remained in balance. His family was both his strength and his challenge. The Sapa Inca married many wives, often from noble families across the empire, to forge alliances and secure loyalty. His primary wife, the Koya, was his partner in both rule and ritual, often a sister or close relative to preserve the purity of his divine bloodline. Their children, the Akwi, were groomed for leadership, though only one would inherit the Mascapecha. Imagine the tension within the royal household, where ambition and loyalty danced a delicate balance, each son vying to prove his worth, each wife seeking influence for her lineage. Yet the Sapa Inca's authority held this fractious family together, his divine status a shield against division. The Sapa Inca's power was not absolute in the way we might imagine. He ruled through a network of nobles and officials, each bound to him by loyalty and duty. The Curacas, local leaders, governed distant provinces, ensuring the empire's laws were upheld. These men were often brought to Cusco as boys, educated in the ways of the Inca, their loyalty forged in the shadow of the God King. The Sapa Inca also relied on the mita, a system of labor tribute that mobilized thousands to build roads, terraces, or temples. Picture a community gathering under the Sapa Inca's command, their work a sacred offering, their sweat a testament to the empire's unity. But divinity came with isolation. The Sapa Inca lived apart from his people, his life governed by rituals that set him above mortal concerns. He rarely walked among the common folk, his presence reserved for ceremonies or moments of great import. Imagine the awe of a farmer from the sacred valley, catching a glimpse of the Sapa Inca's litter during a festival, his heart swelling with pride and fear. This distance was deliberate. It preserved the mystique of a ruler who was both man and god, whose very existence held the empire together. As the empire grew, so did the Sapa Inca's legend. Leaders like Pachacuti, the ninth Sapa Inca, would transform Tawantinsuyu into a powerhouse, their conquests and reforms echoing across the Andes. But even a god king could not rule alone. Behind his throne stood a society of nobles, farmers, and artisans, each playing their part in the empire's rise. How did this intricate web of loyalty and labor function, and what bound the Inca's people together in such harmony? As the night deepens and the Andes grow silent, the story of their society calls us forward, promising to reveal the heart of a civilization unlike any other. Section 7. The threads of Inca society. As the Andean night deepens, the stars above Cusco burn like embers, casting their light on a city alive with purpose. Beyond the golden halls of the Sapa Inca, the streets hum with the voices of a people bound by shared dreams and duties. The Inca Empire, now stretching across valleys and peaks, is not just a kingdom of stone and conquest, but a tapestry of lives woven together with care. From nobles in their fine cloaks to farmers tending terraced fields, every soul plays a part in Tawantinsuyu, the land of the four quarters. Tonight, as you drift into the gentle embrace of this story, let us walk among these people, exploring the intricate threads of their society, where loyalty, labor, and love of the land created a harmony that echoed through the ages. At the heart of Inca society was the Ilu, the communal unit that bound families together like roots in the Andean soil. Picture a village in the sacred valley, its stone houses clustered beneath a watchful mountain. Here, families worked as one, sharing fields, tools, and harvests. The Ilu was more than a community. It was a covenant, a promise to care for each other through abundance and scarcity. Men plowed the fields with wooden tools, women wove textiles that told stories in their patterns, and elders taught children the songs and histories of their people. Every task, from planting maize to repairing irrigation channels, was a collective effort, sealed with the principle of Aini, reciprocal help that ensured no one stood alone. This communal spirit extended across the empire, knitting together diverse tribes under the Inca's banner. The Ilu was the foundation of their society, but above it rose a carefully structured hierarchy. At the top were the nobles, the Orjones, so named for the large ear spools that marked their status. These men and women, often related to the Sapa Inca, governed provinces, oversaw rituals, and commanded armies. Imagine a resident in his palace. The Curacas were often educated in Cusco, their loyalty to the empire forged in youth, ensuring they carried the Inca's vision to every corner of Tawantinsuyu. Below the nobles were the common people, farmers, artisans, herders, who formed the empire's backbone. Imagine a weaver in Ollantaytambo, her fingers deftly knotting alpaca wool into intricate designs, or a farmer in the highlands, tending potatoes under the shadow of an apu. These were the people who sustained the empire, their labor a sacred offering to Inti and Pachamama. Their lives were governed by the mitas system, a labor tax that required each Ilu to contribute time to public works, building roads, temples, or terraces. Picture a team of men hauling stones up a mountainside, their chants rising with the rhythm of their steps, knowing their work strengthened the empire. In return, the state provided food, tools, and protection, a balance that kept Tawantinsuyu thriving. Women held a vital place in this society, their roles as diverse as the empire's landscapes. Many worked the fields or wove textiles, their creations prized across the Andes. Some, chosen for their beauty or skill, became akla, women dedicated to the service of the gods or the Sapa Inca. Imagine a young woman in the Aclahuasi, a cloistered house in Cusco, learning to brew chicha or weave sacred cloth, her life a blend of duty and honor. Others married into noble families, their unions forging alliances that strengthened the empire. Women were not mere shadows in Inca society. They were its weavers, its nurturers, their hands shaping its future as surely as any warriors. Children, too, were integral to the Ilu. From a young age, they learned the skills of their parents, herding llamas, tending crops, or crafting pottery. Picture a boy in the sacred valley, guiding his family's animals along a mountain path, or a girl learning to spin wool under her mother's watchful eye. Education was practical, rooted in the land, but for noble children, it was more formal, conducted in Cusco's schools where they studied Quechua, history, and the art of the quipu. These knotted cords, used to record everything from taxes to talis, were the empire's memory, and the young learned to read them as we read books today. The Inca's society was not without its tensions. The integration of conquered tribes sometimes sparked resentment, their traditions clashing with Inca ways. Yet, the empire had a gift for assimilation. Conquered peoples were relocated to new regions, their Ilis mixed with others, creating a shared identity. Imagine a family from a distant coastal tribe, now farming in the highlands, learning Quechua and offering coca to the apis. Over time, they became Inca, their old ways blending with the new, like streams joining a river. This was the strength of Tawantinsuyu, its ability to weave difference into unity, to make the Andes one. Festivals and rituals bound this society further. Picture a plaza in Cusco during Inti Raymi, the festival of the sun, filled with dancers in vibrant costumes, their movements honoring the solstice. The Sapa Inca, radiant in gold, led ceremonies that united nobles and commoners in worship of Inti. These moments were not just celebrations, but renewals of the empire's covenant with the divine, reminding all that their labor, their lives, served a greater purpose. Even in daily life, offerings of coca or chicha at huacas, sacred stones or springs, kept the gods close, their presence a comfort in the harsh Andes. This intricate society, with its balance of duty and devotion, was the engine of the Inca's greatness. Every thread, the Ailu's cooperation, the nobles' leadership, the Mida's labor, wove a civilization that seemed unbreakable. But how did the Inca keep track of this vast system, from the crops of a single Ailu to the tributes of a distant province? The answer lies in a tool as elegant as it was mysterious, a system of knots that held the empire's secrets. As the Andean night grows still, the story of the quipu beckons, promising to unravel the hidden language of the Inca. Section 8. The language of the quipu as the Andean sky darkens. The flicker of torches lights the stone courtyards of Cusco, where a quiet figure sits, fingers tracing the knots of a corded bundle. These are no ordinary ropes, but quipus, the Inca's enigmatic system of record-keeping, a language woven in thread that speaks of harvests, tributes, and tales. In a world without writing as we know it, the quipu was the Inca's memory, a tool as intricate as their terraces and as vital as their roads. Tonight, as you sink into the soothing cadence of this story, let us unravel the mystery of these knotted cords, which held the secrets of an empire and whispered the heartbeat of Tawantinsuyu. Imagine a quipucamioc, a keeper of the quipu, seated in a quiet chamber, his hands moving with practiced grace over a bundle of cords. Each quipu is a cascade of strings, some thick, some fine, dyed in colors that glow like the Andes flowers, crimson, indigo, ochre. The cords hang from a main spine, their knots tied in precise patterns, each one a word in a silent language. To the untrained eye, it might seem a tangle, but to the quipucamioc, it is a story, a ledger, a map of the empire's life. These men, trained from youth, could read a quipu as we read a book, their fingers decoding numbers, names, and histories with a touch. The quipu was born of necessity. The Inca ruled a vast empire, from the deserts of Peru's coast to the cloud forests of Ecuador, its people speaking countless dialects, its resources scattered across mountains and valleys. How could one govern such diversity without a script? The quipu was their answer, a system both simple and profound. Picture a quipucamioc in a provincial outpost, recording the harvest of a local Ailu. He ties knots to mark the number of maize baskets, the weight of potatoes, the head count of llamas. A single quipu could hold the tribute of an entire region, its cords noting not just quantities but types, food, cloth, labor, all organized with a precision that rivaled any written ledger. The beauty of the quipu lay in its versatility. Each knot had meaning, its position and type encoding specific information. A figure-8 knot might represent 10, a simple knot 1, a cluster of knots 100. Colors carried significance, red for warriors, yellow for gold, green for crops. The cords themselves varied, some spun from cotton, others from the soft wool of alpacas or vicuñas. Imagine a quipu stretched across a table, its cords fanning out like the branches of a tree, each strand a thread of the empire's story. A single quipu could record the population of a village, the distance of a road, or even the genealogy of a noble family, preserving knowledge in a form that could be carried, stored, and read by those trained in its art. These cords were not just tools of administration, but vessels of memory. The Inca had no alphabet, no scrolls, yet their history lived in the quipu. Picture a storyteller in a highland village, holding a quipu as he recounts the deeds of a great Sapa Inca. The knots guide his tale, marking battles won, temples built, or alliances forged. These narratives, passed down through generations, kept the Incas' past alive, binding them to their origins as surely as their roads bound their empire. Even myths like the journey of Manco Capac might have been knotted into cords, their stories carried from Cusco to the farthest reaches of Tawantinsuyu. The Quipucamioc were the guardians of this knowledge, their role as sacred as any priests. Trained in special schools, often in Cusco, they learned to create and interpret quipus with a precision that bordered on the divine. Imagine a young boy, chosen for his sharp mind, sitting cross-legged as his teacher demonstrates a not subtle twist. These men were not just accountants, but historians, advisors, and keepers of the empire's soul. They traveled with chasquis, the swift runners who carried quipus along the Inca roads, ensuring that the Sapa Inca's will was known from the highlands to the coast. A single quipu could summon laborers for a new temple or redistribute food during a drought. It's not a lifeline for a sprawling empire. Yet, the quipu was not without its mysteries. Some cords held secrets known only to the highest ranks, their meanings guarded like sacred huacas. Imagine a Quipucamioc in the Sapa Inca's court, whispering the contents of a quipu to his lord, its knots revealing the loyalty of a distant curaca or the strength of an enemy tribe. The quipu could be a tool of control, its records ensuring that no province shirked its mita or withheld tribute. But it was also a symbol of trust, a shared language that bound diverse peoples into one empire, their differences knotted into unity. The quipu's reach extended beyond the practical. In festivals, they might be displayed, their colors and patterns a testament to the empire's wealth. In times of crisis, they guided decisions, their knots consulted like oracles. Picture a community gathered around a Quipucamioc, his voice steady as he reads the chords, announcing the resources available to survive a harsh winter. This was the quipu's power, not just to record, but to sustain, to give the Inca the tools to govern a land as vast and varied as the Andes. As the empire grew, the quipu became its silent voice, a language that spoke across mountains and centuries. But what of the gods who watched over this system, the deities whose favor the Inca sought in every knot and offering? The quipu recorded their world, but their faith shaped it, a spiritual realm as rich as their terraces and roads. As the night wraps you in its calm, the story of the Inca's gods calls us deeper, to a world where the sun and stone held the secrets of eternity. Section 9. Gods of sun and stone, as the Andean night unfurls its velvet cloak, the stars above glitter like offerings to a divine council, their light bathing the stone temples of Cusco in a soft, ethereal glow. To the Inca, this was no mere sky but a celestial tapestry, woven with the will of gods who shaped their world. Their faith was as enduring as the mountains, as vital as the rivers that carved their valleys. At its heart stood Inti, the sun god, whose radiance gave life to the empire, but he was not alone. The Inca's spiritual world was rich with deities, each a thread in the fabric of Tawantinsuyu. Tonight, as you drift toward the gentle pull of sleep, let us step into the sacred realm of the Inca, where sun and stone spoke of eternity and the divine. The Inca saw their world as alive, every peak, river, and star pulsing with spirit. Their religion was not confined to temples, but woven into the land itself. Imagine standing before a huaca, a sacred boulder carved with intricate patterns, its surface warm from the sun's kiss. To the Inca, this was no mere stone but a portal to the divine, a place where offerings of coca leaves or chicha, the fermented maize drink, could reach the gods. These huacas dotted the Andes, from hidden springs to towering peaks, each a testament to a faith that saw divinity in the everyday. The mountains, the Apis, were protectors, their snow-capped summits revered as guardians watching over the people below. At the center of this spiritual world was Inti, the sun god, father of the Sapa Inca and lifeblood of the empire. Picture the Coricancha, Cusco's temple of the sun, its walls clad in gold that burned like fire under Inti's gaze. Here, priests in flowing robes performed rituals at dawn, their voices rising in Quechua chants as they poured chicha into golden vessels, offering thanks for the sun's warmth. Inti was more than a deity. He was the rhythm of life, his daily journey across the sky marking the seasons for planting and harvest. During Inti Raymi, the festival of the sun, Cusco's plazas overflowed with dancers, their costumes shimmering as they honored the solstice, the Sapa Inca himself leading the rites, his presence a living link to the divine. Beside Inti stood Mama Quilla, the moon goddess, his consort and protector of women. Her silver light guided the Inca's calendar, her phases dictating festivals and rituals. Imagine a priestess, one of the Akla, standing beneath a full moon, her hands raised to Mama Quilla, praying for fertility and balance. The moon's cycles were sacred, her eclipses seen as omens, moments when the cosmic order trembled. The Inca watched the heavens with reverence, their astronomers tracking stars like the Pleiades, which signaled the time to plant. The Milky Way, called Mayu, was a celestial river, its path mirroring the rivers that sustained their fields. Pachamama, the Earth Mother, was equally vital, her presence felt in every harvest and every stone. To the Inca, she was the nurturing force that fed their crops and cradled their cities. Farmers offered her coca leaves before planting, their hands pressing the leaves into the soil as a gesture of gratitude. During ceremonies, priests poured chicha onto the ground, a libation to ensure her favor. Pachamama was not distant, but intimate, her spirit in the terraced fields, the rushing rivers, the very earth beneath their feet. To honor her was to honor life itself, a reminder that the Incas' prosperity depended on their bond with the land. Other gods filled their pantheon. Viracocha, the creator god, was said to have shaped the world, crafting humans from clay and setting the sun and moon in their paths. Though less prominent than Inti, his name was invoked in times of great change, his power a mystery that even priests approached with awe. Ilapa, the god of thunder and rain, was both feared and cherished, his storms bringing life to the fields but also destruction if angered. Imagine a highland village, its people gathered around a huaca as thunder rumbles, offering sacrifices to appease Ilapa, their prayers rising with the scent of burning herbs. Rituals were the heartbeat of Inca faith, binding the people to their gods and to each other. Sacrifices were common, though rarely human. Llamas, their blood seen as a gift to the divine, were offered during major ceremonies, their bodies buried with care. Coca, maize, and fine textiles were also given, each item chosen for its value. In rare cases, during times of crisis or great celebration, the Inca performed the capacacha, a human sacrifice of children chosen for their perfection. These were not acts of cruelty, but of profound reverence, the children believed to join the gods, their lives a bridge to the divine. Imagine the solemn procession, the child adorned in fine cloth, their journey to a sacred peak seen as a sacred gift to ensure the empire's survival. Temples, like the Coricancha, were the spiritual hubs of Tawantinsuyu. Built with the same precision as Machu Picchu, they housed sacred objects, golden statues of Inti, silver effigies of Mama Quilla, relics of past Sapa Incas. Priests, trained in the mysteries of the cosmos, guarded these spaces, their lives dedicated to interpreting the gods' will. The Akla, women chosen for their skill or beauty, wove sacred textiles and prepared offerings, their work as vital as any warriors. Together, they ensured that the empire's spiritual balance was maintained, that the gods were honored in every aspect of life. This faith was not just a religion but a way of seeing the world, a lens through which the Inca understood their place in the cosmos. It guided their laws, their labor, their love for the land. But to sustain this empire, to connect its far-flung provinces and peoples, the Inca needed more than gods. They needed pathways, lifelines that bound Tawantinsuyu together. As the night grows deeper and the Andes whisper their secrets, the story of the Inca's roads calls us forward, promising to reveal the arteries of an empire that stretched beyond the horizon. Section 10. The roads that bound an empire as the Andean dawn breaks. A golden haze spills over the mountains, illuminating a network of stone paths that snake across cliffs and valleys like veins of the earth. These are the Inca roads, the arteries of Tawantinsuyu, binding a vast empire from the sun-scorched coasts to the misty highlands. In a land where rugged peaks and roaring rivers could divide as easily as unite, the Inca wove their dominion with pathways that carried goods, armies, and dreams. Tonight, as you sink into the gentle rhythm of this tale, let us walk these ancient routes, where every step tells a story of ingenuity, connection, and the ambition that made the Inca masters of the Andes. The Inca road system, known as the Quipus, stretched over 25,000 miles, a marvel that rivaled the engineering of Rome or Persia. Picture a trail winding through a narrow gorge, its stones fitted with the same precision as Machu Picchu's walls, or a suspension bridge swaying high above a raging river, its ropes woven from grass yet strong enough to bear a dozen warriors. These roads were not mere paths, but lifelines, connecting the empire's farthest reaches, from the deserts of modern Chile to the jungles of Ecuador, from the Pacific shores to the Andean peaks. They carried the Sapa Inca's will, the people's labor, and the gods' blessings across a landscape that seemed to defy such unity. Building these roads was a feat of endurance and vision. The Andes, with their steep slopes and unpredictable weather, were no place for the faint-hearted. Imagine teams of workers, their hands rough from hauling stone, carving steps into mountainsides or paving paths with cobbles smoothed by rivers. They worked under the Midas system, entire isles laboring together, their chants rising as they shaped the land. Where cliffs loomed, they built retaining walls. Where rivers roared, they strung bridges of iku grass, their cables anchored to stone pillars. These bridges, some spanning hundreds of feet, were rebuilt yearly, a testament to the Incas' commitment to keeping their empire connected. The roads served many purposes. For trade, they were vital, carrying goods that defined the empire's wealth. Picture a caravan of llamas, their bells jingling, laden with sacks of maize from the sacred valley, salt from maras, or feathers from the Amazon. Merchants and farmers met at way stations, called tampas, where they bartered under the watchful eyes of curacas. These tampas were more than rest stops. They were hubs of life, offering food, shelter, and news to travelers. Imagine a weary trader, warmed by a fire in a stone-built tampu, sharing stories of distant provinces as he unpacks his wares, the road binding him to a world far beyond his village. For the military, the roads were a lifeline. Armies marched swiftly along their paths, their slings and bronze-tipped clubs at the ready, quelling rebellions or expanding the empire's borders. The roads' design, wide in flatlands, narrow in gorges, allowed warriors to move with speed and precision. Messengers, the chasquis, were the empire's pulse, running in relays to carry quipus or oral commands. Picture a chasqui sprinting along a mountain path, his lungs burning in the thin air, a quipu tucked into his belt, delivering news of a harvest or a threat. These runners, trained from youth, could cover hundreds of miles in days, their speed ensuring the Sapa Inca's orders reached every corner of Tawantinsuyu. The roads also carried culture. Priests and pilgrims traveled to sacred huacas, their offerings strengthening the empire's spiritual bonds. Festivals like Inti Raymi drew crowds along the roads to Cusco, their songs echoing through the valleys. Imagine a procession winding toward the capital, dancers in vibrant costumes, their steps in rhythm with the beat of drums, carrying coca and chicha to honor Inti. The roads made these journeys possible, turning a scattered people into a unified nation, their shared faith and purpose flowing like rivers through the Andes. The engineering of the Quipus was as remarkable as its scope. In the highlands, roads were paved with stones or packed earth, their surfaces sloped to shed rain. In deserts, they were marked with markers to guide travelers through shifting sands. Tunnels bored through solid rock, and stairways climbed dizzying cliffs, each step a testament to the Incas' mastery of their land. Imagine crossing a stone bridge over a chasm, its arches so precise they seem carved by the gods themselves, or pausing at a tampu to gaze at a road stretching to the horizon, its path as straight as the sun's rays. Yet these roads were more than stone and rope, they were a philosophy. The Inca built to endure, their paths designed to outlast empires. They were also a sacred act, each road an offering to the Apis and Pachamama, blessed with rituals before construction began. The Quipus was the empire's spine, its roots carrying not just goods, but the idea of Tawantinsuyu, a land united under the Sapa Inca's divine rule. To walk these roads was to feel the empire's heartbeat, to know that every step connected you to a greater whole. As the road stretched further, so did the Incas' ambitions. Their empire grew, its borders reaching new lands, its people thriving on the bounty of their fields. But how did they sustain such a vast dominion, feeding millions across mountains and deserts? The answer lies in their mastery of agriculture, a science as sophisticated as their roads, as vital as their gods. As the stars wheel above the Andes, the story of their fields and harvests calls us forward, promising to reveal the secrets of a civilization that turned stone into sustenance. Section 11. The bounty of the Andes as the Andean sun climbs high. Its rays warm the terraced fields that cascade down the mountains like steps of green and gold. In the valleys and highlands of Tawantinsuyu, the Inca have turned the harsh embrace of the Andes into a garden, their crops thriving where lesser hands might falter. This is no mere act of survival, but a symphony of ingenuity, where the land's gifts are coaxed forth with skill and reverence. The Incas' agriculture was the lifeblood of their empire, feeding millions and fueling their ambitions. Tonight, as you settle into the soothing cadence of this tale, let us wander through these fields, where the bounty of the Andes tells a story of resilience and harmony with the earth. The Andes were a land of contrasts, fertile valleys cradled by barren peaks, seasons of plenty shadowed by drought or frost. To thrive here, the Inca became masters of their environment, reading the rhythms of rain and sun with the same care they gave their quipus. Their fields grew maize, the golden crop sacred to Inti, its kernels ground into flour for bread and chicha. Potatoes, hardy and versatile, flourished in the high altitudes, their countless varieties a testament to the Incas' deep knowledge of the land. Quinoa, with its tiny, nutrient-rich grains, and beans rounded out their harvests, each crop chosen to suit the Andes' varied climates. Picture a farmer in the sacred valley, his hands rough from years of labor, guiding a wooden plow through soil enriched by river silt. Behind him, terraces climb the slopes, their stone walls holding the earth in a delicate balance. These terraces, built with the same precision as Cusco's temples, transformed the Andes' steep inclines into fertile fields. Water flowed through stone channels, fed by springs and streams high in the mountains, each canal a lifeline that sustained crops through dry seasons. Imagine the sound of water trickling through these channels, a gentle murmur that speaks of the Incas' pact with Pachamama, the Earth Mother, whose favor they sought with every planting. The Incas' agricultural genius extended beyond terraces. They bred crops to thrive in the Andes' extremes, selecting seeds that could withstand frost or drought. Potatoes, for instance, were cultivated in over 3,000 varieties, each suited to a specific altitude or soil. Some grew in the high, cold Puna, others in the warmer valleys below. This diversity was no accident, but the result of generations of careful observation, a science rooted in trial and reverence. Imagine a woman sorting tubers by size and color, her knowledge passed down through stories and songs, ensuring her Ailu's survival through lean years. One of their most remarkable innovations was chuño, a freeze-dried potato that could be stored for years. Picture a highland night, the air so cold it stings, as farmers lay potatoes on the ground to freeze under the stars. By day, the sun's warmth dries them, a process repeated until the tubers become light, durable, and impervious to rot. Chuño was a marvel, a food that could feed armies on the march or sustain villages through drought. Stored in calcas, stone granaries built with ventilation to keep crops cool, these reserves were the empire's insurance, a buffer against the Andes' unpredictable moods. The Inca also mastered irrigation, turning arid slopes into oases. Their aqueducts, carved into cliffs or lined with stone, carried water across vast distances, their gradients so precise that water flowed evenly to every field. Imagine a community gathered to clean these channels, their laughter mingling with the splash of water, their work a shared act of Aini. These systems were not just practical but sacred, blessed with offerings to Alapa, the thunder god, whose rains filled the canals. The Inca understood that water was life, and their care for it bound their society as tightly as their roads. Livestock, too, played a vital role. Llamas and alpacas, domesticated long before the Incas' rise, were the Andes' gift to its people. Llamas carried loads along the Quipus, their sure-footed steps navigating narrow paths. Alpacas provided wool for textiles, their soft fibers woven into garments that warmed against the highland chill. Imagine a herder guiding his flock across a grassy puna, his whistle echoing as he leads them to new pastures. These animals were not just resources, but kin, their care a duty shared by the Ayllu, their sacrifice an offering to the gods during festivals. The Incas' agriculture was a collective endeavor, rooted in the Midas system. Entire communities worked the fields, built terraces, or maintained canals, their labor a sacred act that honored both the land and the Sapa Inca. Picture a festival in a highland village, where the harvest is celebrated with dances and chicha, the people giving thanks to Pachamama for her bounty. These moments of joy were as vital as the crops themselves, binding the Inca to their land and each other, their shared work a testament to their unity. This agricultural prowess sustained an empire of millions, its granaries filled, its people fed. From the sacred valley to the farthest provinces, the Incas' fields were a symbol of their mastery, a proof that they could tame the Andes' wild heart. But even as their empire flourished, shadows loomed on the horizon, strangers from across the sea, whose arrival would test the strength of Tawantinsuyu. What would happen when these worlds collided, when the Inca's bounty faced the greed of conquerors? As the night wraps you in its quiet embrace, the story of that fateful encounter draws near, promising a tale of courage and tragedy. Section 12. The shadow of conquest. As the Andean twilight deepens, the mountains stand silent, their peaks cloaked in mist, as if guarding the secrets of an empire at its zenith. The Inca, masters of stone and field, rule a land that stretches from the deserts to the jungles, their roads and rituals binding millions in harmony. Yet, far beyond the horizon, across a vast and restless sea, a storm gathers, one that will shake the foundations of Tawantinsuyu. Strange men in shining armor, carried by ships and driven by greed, are coming. Tonight, as you drift into the gentle embrace of this tale, let us stand at the edge of this turning point, where the Inca's world meets the shadow of conquest, and the echoes of their courage begin to resonate. It is the early 16th century, and the Inca Empire, under the Sapa Inca Huayna Capac, is a beacon of strength. Cusco gleams with gold, its terraces overflow with crops, and the Quipus carries the pulse of a united people. But in 1526, whispers of strangers reach the Andes, bearded men on floating houses, their weapons spitting fire, their hunger for riches insatiable. These are the Spanish, led by Francisco Pizarro, a man whose ambition burns as fiercely as Inti's rays. Picture the first rumors spreading through the islas, carried by chasquis along the roads. Tales of pale foreigners landing on the northern coast, their intentions unclear, their power unknown. The Inca were not unprepared for conflict. Their armies, disciplined and fierce, had subdued countless tribes, their slings and clubs a match for any foe in the Andes. But the Spanish brought a different kind of warfare. Their steel swords gleamed sharper than bronze, their muskets roared with a sound no Inca had heard, and their horses, strange, swift beasts, seemed like creatures from another world. Imagine a highland warrior, his heart pounding, seeing a mounted Spaniard for the first time, the ground trembling under hooves, the rider's armor glinting like a star. To the Inca, these were not just men but omens, their arrival stirring unease in a land where the gods' will was read in every sign. The empire faced its own challenges before the Spanish set foot on their soil. Huayna Capac, a great Sapa Inca, had expanded Tawantinsuyu to its farthest reaches, but his death in 1527 sparked a crisis. A mysterious illness, possibly smallpox brought by European contact, swept through the Andes, claiming the emperor and countless others. Imagine the grief in Cusco, the Coricancha's golden walls dimmed by mourning, as priests offered sacrifices to appease the gods. Huayna Capac's death left a void, and his sons, Huascar and Atahualpa, vied for the Mascapacha. Their rivalry plunged the empire into civil war, brother against brother, tearing at the unity that had defined the Inca's strength. It was into this fractured world that Pizarro arrived in 1532, his small band of 168 men, a speck against the might of Tawantinsuyu. Yet their timing was fateful. The Civil War had weakened the empire, its armies divided, its people shaken by disease and discord. Pizarro, cunning and ruthless, saw opportunity in this chaos. He marched toward Cajamarca, where Atahualpa, victorious over Huascar, held court. Picture the Inca camp, vibrant with the colors of victory, as Atahualpa, adorned in gold and feathers, receives word of the stranger's approach. Curious rather than fearful, he invited them to meet, unaware of the trap being set. The encounter at Cajamarca was a moment that changed history. On November 16, 1532, Atahualpa arrived in the city's plaza, carried on a golden litter, surrounded by thousands of unarmed attendants. The Spanish, hidden in the shadows, sprang their ambush. Muskets roared, horses charged, and steel cut through the Inca ranks. Imagine the chaos, the cries of the unprepared, the clash of metal, the terror of facing weapons unknown. Atahualpa was seized, his litter toppled, his divine status no shield against Pizarro's treachery. The Inca, accustomed to ritualized warfare, were unprepared for such brutality, their numbers no match for the Spanish's calculated violence. Atahualpa, now a prisoner, sought to buy his freedom. He offered a ransom that stunned the Spanish, a room filled with gold, another with silver, treasures stripped from temples and palaces. Picture the scene. Inca laborers hauling golden statues, plates, and ornaments, their hearts heavy as they dismantled their sacred huacas. The Spanish, their eyes gleaming with greed, melted these treasures into bars, erasing centuries of artistry. Yet even this ransom could not save Atahualpa. In 1533, after months of captivity, Pizarro ordered his execution, strangling the Sapa Inca in Cajamarca's plaza. Imagine the silence that followed, the Incas' world shaken as their god-king fell, their faith tested by a loss they could not comprehend. The conquest was not yet complete, but Cajamarca was a wound from which Tawantinsuyu would not recover. The Spanish pressed on, their path eased by disease, division, and their own relentless ambition. The Inca, though stunned, were not broken. Warriors rallied, and new leaders rose, their resolve as unyielding as the Andes themselves. But could they hold their empire against this relentless foe, whose hunger for gold outmatched even the sun's radiance? As the night grows still and the stars bear witness, the story of their resistance calls us forward, to a moment when Cusco itself would face the fire of conquest. Section 13. The fall of Cusco as the Andean night wraps the mountains in its quiet embrace. The city of Cusco stands as a beacon of Inca glory, its golden temples and stone palaces aglow under the stars. Yet a shadow looms, carried by the hoofbeats of Spanish horses and the glint of steel in foreign hands. The year is 1533, and the heart of Tawantinsuyu beats with unease, its people reeling from the loss of Atahualpa, their god-king. The Spanish, led by Francisco Pizarro, now turn their eyes to Cusco, the sacred navel of the Inca world. Tonight, as you drift into the soothing rhythm of this tale, let us stand within Cusco's walls, where courage and tragedy collide, and the Inca face the crucible of conquest. The death of Atahualpa in Cajamarca sent tremors through the empire, like an earthquake shaking the Andes' ancient stones. The Inca, bound by their faith in the Sapa Inca's divinity, struggled to comprehend a world where their ruler could fall to mortal hands. Yet, even in grief, the empire did not crumble. A new Sapa Inca, Manco Inca, a half-brother of Atahualpa, was crowned in haste, his mascapacho a symbol of hope amidst chaos. Picture him in the Coricancha, his face solemn as priests offer coca and chicha to Inti, praying for strength. Manco, young but resolute, vowed to restore Tawantinsuyu's glory, unaware that the Spanish were already marching toward his city. Pizarro, emboldened by his victory at Cajamarca, saw Cusco as the prize, a city fabled for its gold, the spiritual and political heart of the Inca. In November 1533, his small force, joined by native allies resentful of Inca rule, approached the capital. Imagine the tension in Cusco's streets, the air thick with whispers of the stranger's advance. The Inca's warriors, armed with slings, clubs, and bronze axes, prepared to defend their sacred city, their hearts fierce with loyalty to Manco and Inti. But the Spanish brought weapons the Inca could not match, firearms that roared like thunder, steel blades that cut through bronze, and horses that charged with terrifying speed. The fall of Cusco was not a single battle but a slow, wrenching collapse. When Pizarro entered the city on November 1533, he met little resistance at first. The Inca, still fractured by civil war and smallpox, were unprepared for the Spanish's relentless advance. Picture the scene. Spanish soldiers, their armor clanking, marching into the Acapata Plaza, their eyes wide at the sight of golden walls and sacred huacas. The Inca, outnumbered and outmatched, watched as their city was claimed, their temples looted of gold and silver. The Coricancha, once radiant with Inti's glory, was stripped, its treasures melted into bars for Spanish coffers. The sound of hammers and the scent of smoke filled the air, a desecration that struck at the Inca's soul. Manco Inca, though crowned, was little more than a puppet at first. Pizarro installed him as a figurehead, hoping to rule through him while plundering Tawantinsuyu's wealth. Imagine Manco in his palace, his heart torn between duty and rage, forced to smile at the men who defiled his city. The Spanish, drunk on gold, underestimated the Inca's spirit. By 1536, Manco had seen enough. He fled Cusco under cover of night, rallying warriors from across the empire to reclaim their capital. Picture him in the hills, his cloak billowing in the wind, addressing thousands of loyal fighters, their faces painted for war, their slings ready. The Inca were not broken, they were awakening. The siege of Cusco began in May 1536, a rebellion that shook the Spanish to their core. Manco's forces, tens of thousands strong, descended on the city, their war cries echoing through the valleys. They blockaded the roads, cut off supplies, and rained stones from slings onto Spanish positions. Imagine the chaos in Cusco's plazas, Spanish soldiers, trapped in stone buildings, firing muskets into waves of Inca warriors, their horses useless in the narrow streets. The Inca set fires, their flames licking the thatched roofs, threatening to engulf the city. For months, the siege raged, the Incas' determination a match for Spanish steel, their knowledge of the terrain turning the Andes into an ally. Yet the Spanish held on, their firearms and armor giving them an edge in close combat. Manco's warriors, though brave, lacked the technology to breach fortified positions. The siege also strained the Incas' resources. Armies needed food, and the empire's calcas were stretched thin. Spanish reinforcements, including native allies like the Cañari, tipped the balance. By early 1537, the siege faltered, and Manco was forced to retreat. Picture the heartbreak as he led his warriors into the mountains, Cusco's golden light fading behind them. The city, though still standing, was no longer the Incas. It was a Spanish stronghold, its sacred spaces defiled, its people under foreign rule. The fall of Cusco was a wound that bled across Tawantinsuyu. The Spanish looted its treasures, desecrated its temples, and imposed their own laws, yet the Inca's spirit endured. Manco Inca, now a fugitive, refused to surrender. He retreated to the remote jungles of Vilcabamba, a hidden stronghold where the Andes' embrace offered refuge. From there, he planned to fight on, to keep the flame of Tawantinsuyu alive. Could this last bastion hold against the Spanish tide, or was the empire's light fading forever? As the stars burn above the Andes, the story of Vilcabamba beckons, a tale of defiance in the face of an unstoppable storm. Section 14. The last stand of Vilcabamba as the Andean night deepens, the mountains close in like silent protectors, their shadows hiding a stronghold nestled in the jungles of Vilcabamba. Here, far from the looted plazas of Cusco, Manco Inca and his loyal followers carve out a refuge, a final ember of Tawantinsuyu glowing against the encroaching darkness. The year is 1537, and the Spanish grip tightens on the Andes, their banners flying over Cusco's sacred stones. Yet, in this remote sanctuary, the Inca refuse to fade, their defiance a whisper of hope in a world unraveling. Tonight, as you drift into the gentle cadence of this tale, let us venture into Vilcabamba, where the Inca make their last stand, their courage a beacon in the face of conquest. Vilcabamba, hidden in the rugged folds of the Andes, was a land where the mountains met the jungle, its steep valleys cloaked in mist and vines. Picture a narrow trail winding through dense foliage, the air heavy with the scent of orchids and earth, leading to a settlement of stone and thatch. This was no grand city like Cusco, but a fortress born of necessity, its walls built to shield the remnants of an empire. Manco Inca, once a puppet under Spanish rule, now stood as a warrior king, his mascapacha a symbol of resistance. Imagine him rallying his people, warriors, farmers, priests, their faces set with determination, their hearts bound to the dream of Tawantinsuyu. Manco's retreat to Vilcabamba was a strategic choice. The region's terrain, rivers carving deep gorges, cliffs rising like sentinels, made it a natural stronghold, nearly inaccessible to Spanish horses and cannons. Here, the Inca rebuilt their lives, planting maize and potatoes on terraced slopes, weaving textiles in the old ways, and offering coca to the apis. Picture a small temple, its stones rough but sacred, where priests pray to Inti, their voices rising above the jungle's hum. The quipus still recorded their stores, their plans, their hopes, while chasquis darted through hidden paths, carrying messages of rebellion to scattered allies. Manco's resistance was relentless. From Vilcabamba, he launched guerrilla raids on Spanish outposts, his warriors striking like shadows in the night. Imagine Inca fighters, their slings whistling through the air, ambushing Spanish convoys along the Quhapac Nian. These attacks disrupted supply lines, sowing fear among the conquerors, who whispered of the Inca ghost haunting the Andes. Manco's forces, though fewer in number, knew the land, every trail, every river, and used it to their advantage. For a time, Vilcabamba was a thorn in the Spanish side, a reminder that Tawantinsuyu was not yet lost. Yet, the Spanish were relentless too. Pizarro, now governor of the conquered territories, sent expeditions to crush the rebellion. The Incas' bronze weapons and cotton armor were no match for steel and gunpowder, and their numbers dwindled with each skirmish. In 1544, tragedy struck. Manco Inca was betrayed, murdered by Spanish fugitives he had sheltered, his dream of reclaiming Cusco cut short. Picture the grief in Vilcabamba, the silence as his body is laid to rest, the people mourning not just a man but the hope he carried. Yet the Inca spirit endured, passed to Manco's sons, Seri Tupac, Titu and Tupac Amaru, who vowed to continue the fight. Seri Tupac, the first to rule after Manco, faced a choice: resist or negotiate. In 1558, lured by promises of peace and land, he left Vilcabamba to meet the Spanish, only to die under suspicious circumstances. Titu, his brother, took up the mantle, ruling from the jungle stronghold with a mix of defiance and diplomacy. Imagine him dictating letters to Spanish officials, his words recorded by a scribe, balancing resistance with survival. Titu maintained Vilcabamba's independence, launching raids while negotiating to preserve his people's autonomy. But his death in 1571, possibly from illness, left the Inca leaderless once more. Tupac Amaru, the last Sapa Inca, ascended in Vilcabamba, his youth belying a fierce resolve. Picture a young man, barely in his 20s, standing before his warriors, his eyes burning with the legacy of his ancestors. In 1572, the Spanish, under Viceroy Francisco de Toledo, launched a final campaign to crush the Inca resistance. They marched into Vilcabamba's jungles, their forces bolstered by native allies and superior weapons. The Inca fought bravely, their slings and clubs striking from hidden vantage points, but the Spanish advance was unstoppable. Imagine the clash, arrows flying, the roar of muskets, the jungle alive with the chaos of battle. Vilcabamba fell, its stone walls overrun, its people strewed as a place of refuge, its fall a symbol of the Incas' final defeat. Tupac Amaru was captured and executed in Cusco's plaza, his death in 1572 marking the end of the Incas' sovereignty. Picture the crowd gathered, their silence heavy with grief, as the last Sapa Inca's life is extinguished, the mascapacha falling with him. The fall of Vilcabamba was the closing of a chapter, but not the end of the Incas' story. Their culture, their spirit, lingered in the Andes, carried by descendants who preserved their language, their songs, their reverence for the land. Though Tawantinsuyu was no more, its legacy endured, etched in stone and memory. What remains of this great civilization, and how does its echo resonate in the modern world? As the stars gleam above the Andes, the final chapter of the Incas' story calls us forward, promising to reveal the enduring light of a lost empire. Section 15. The legacy of the Inca as the Andean night settles into a profound stillness. The mountains stand as eternal witnesses, their peaks cradling the memories of a civilization that once shone like the sun. The fall of Vilcabamba in 1572 marked the end of Tawantinsuyu's sovereignty, its golden temples dimmed, its roads quieted under foreign rule. Yet, the Incas' spirit did not vanish with their empire. Like seeds carried by the wind, their culture, wisdom, and resilience took root in the Andes, blooming in ways that endure to this day. Tonight, as you drift into the gentle embrace of this final chapter, let us explore the legacy of the Inca, a story of survival, adaptation, and a timeless bond with the land that continues to whisper their name. The Spanish conquest sought to erase Tawantinsuyu, melting its golden treasures and imposing a new faith, but the Incas' essence proved unbreakable. Their descendants, the Quechua and Aymara peoples, carried forward the traditions of their ancestors, their lives a quiet rebellion against oblivion. Picture a modern Andean village, its stone-walled homes echoing the architecture of Ollantaytambo, where women still weave textiles with patterns that tell stories of Apis and Pachamama. The Quechua language, once the tongue of an empire, remains alive, spoken by millions across Peru, Bolivia, and Ecuador. Its words, Ailu Chicha Inti, carry the weight of centuries, a living thread to the Incas' past. The Incas' agricultural genius endures in the fields that still feed the Andes. Terraces, carved into mountainsides, continue to yield maize, potatoes, and quinoa, their stone walls standing as they did 500 years ago. Imagine a farmer in the sacred valley, his hands tending crops with the same care as his Inca forebears, using techniques passed down through generations. The potato, once a humble tuber nurtured by the Inca, now feeds the world, its countless varieties a testament to their mastery. Chuño, the freeze-dried potato, is still made in highland villages, its process unchanged. A quiet tribute to the Incas' ingenuity in preserving food against the Andes' harsh whims. Their architectural marvels, too, stand as monuments to their skill. Machu Picchu, rediscovered in 1911 by Hiram Bingham, draws millions to its misty heights, its stones whispering of a people who built for eternity. Picture tourists tracing their fingers along the seamless walls, marveling at the precision that defies time and earthquakes. Sacsayhuaman, with its massive zigzag stones, looms above Cusco, a reminder of the Incas' strength. These sites are not mere relics but living huacas, sacred to modern Andeans who still offer coca and chicha to the spirits of the land. The Quihapac Ñan, the Inca road system, remains a UNESCO World Heritage Site, its paths walked by trekkers who feel the echo of chasquis in their steps. The Incas' spiritual legacy lives on in the rituals that blend old and new. In Andean festivals, like Koiler Riddy, thousands gather to honor the stars and mountains, their dances and offerings echoing Inti Raymi. Imagine a plaza vibrant with color, where Quechua prayers mingle with Catholic hymns, a syncretism born of conquest but rooted in Inca reverence for Pachamama. Coca leaves, once sacred to Inti, are still chewed by farmers and offered in ceremonies, their bitter taste a link to the past. The Apis, the mountain gods, remain protectors, their presence felt in every prayer whispered on a windswept peak. The Incas' social ideals, Aini, the reciprocal labor of the Ailu, persist in Andean communities. Picture neighbors in a highland village working together to repair a canal or harvest a field, their laughter and shared chicha a modern echo of Inca unity. This spirit of collective effort has shaped modern movements, as indigenous groups advocate for their rights, drawing on the Incas' legacy of resilience. Organizations like the Andean Alliance for Sustainable Development build schools and terraces inspired by Inca methods, proving that Tawantinsuyu's principles can guide the future as they did the past. Yet the Inca's legacy is not without its shadows. The Spanish conquest left scars, disease, forced labor, and cultural suppression took a heavy toll. Many quipus were destroyed, their knotted stories lost, leaving gaps in the Inca's history that scholars still struggle to fill. Imagine a Quipucamiox descendant holding a surviving quipu in a museum. It's not a mystery that haunts as much as it reveals. The Quechua and Aymara face challenges today: poverty, marginalization, and the pressures of modernity. But their pride in their Inca heritage burns bright, a flame that refuses to be extinguished. The world beyond the Andes also bears the Inca's mark. Their crops, like potatoes and quinoa, have become global staples, their nutritional value feeding billions. Their engineering, studied by architects and archaeologists, inspires awe and innovation, from earthquake-resistant designs to sustainable agriculture. Even their art, textiles, pottery, and stonework, lives in museums and markets, each piece a story of a people who saw beauty in utility. Picture a weaver in a Cusco market, her hands creating patterns that echo those of her ancestors, her work a bridge between past and present. As we stand at the end of this journey, the Andes seem to hum with the Inca's presence. Their empire fell, but their legacy rises in every terrace, every Quechua word, every stone that still stands against the centuries. They were a people who turned mountains into gardens, who wove their dreams into chords, who saw the divine in the world around them. What would they say to us now, as we walk their roads and marvel at their works? Perhaps they would remind us to honor the land, to build for the future, to live in harmony as they did. As the stars fade and the Andes grow quiet, the Inca's story lingers, a gentle lullaby that carries us into dreams, where their spirit lives on. As the Andean night fades into the soft glow of dawn, the mountains stand as silent sentinels, their peaks cradling the echoes of a civilization that shaped the very earth. The Inca, with their stone cities, knotted quipus, and reverence for sun and stone, built an empire that was more than a kingdom. It was a testament to human ingenuity, resilience, and harmony with the land. Though Tawantinsuyu fell to the Spanish, its spirit endures in the terraces that still yield crops, the Quechua voices that carry ancient songs, and the sacred huacas that whisper of a time when the Andes were ruled by the children of Inti. Their story is not just a history, but a reminder of what humanity can achieve when guided by purpose and bound by community. As you drift toward sleep, imagine walking the Quihapac Nyan, your steps echoing those of the Chasquis, or standing in Machu Picchu's embrace, the mist curling around you like a memory. The Inca's legacy is a gift to us all, a call to honor the land, to weave our lives with meaning, to build for the ages. Their stones still stand, their crops still feed, their spirit still speaks. Let their tale linger in your dreams, a gentle reminder of a people who turned mountains into miracles. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the Inca's world. If this story has lulled you into calm or sparked your curiosity, please share it with someone who might love it too. I'd be so grateful if you'd like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon to never miss a tale. Your support keeps these stories alive, and I'm honored to have you here. Tell me in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it there? What part of the Inca's story touched you most? Let's keep the conversation going. This is Sherry, wishing you peaceful dreams and timeless wonders. Until next time, sleep well.